committee. When I call your name, please respond. Walter Bouchard. Vince Woolpert. Kelly McKenzie.
Present.
Thank you. Beverly Chanowski.
Present.
Thank you. Mike Denby. Jesse Porter. Kim Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. Miguel Esquivel.
Present.
Thank you. Kenya Lugo Wait. Mark Ortiz. Anita Lee. Romare Truly. Ron Gritman. Hondo Judd.
Present.
Thank you. Megan Sheldon.
Present.
Thank you. Monica Rabb. Spencer Camps. Rick Williams. Kim Butler.
Present.
Thank you. Nicole Clements.
Present.
Thank you, Nicole. Jenna Brickner.
Present.
Thank you. Jennifer Peterson. Katrina Gerster. Rupesh Patel.
Present.
Thank you. Ben Davis.
Here.
Thank you. Ryan Templeton.
Present.
Thank you. Tim Connor.
Present.
Thank you. Brody Lynn.
Present.
Thank you. Jonathan Thutch. Jonathan Thutch.
Sorry, present, was muted.
Thank you. John Woods.
Present.
Thank you. Mike Chamberlain.
Present.
Thank you. Arden Holloway.
Present.
Thank you. Susie Stevens. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. A quorum is now present. Good afternoon, members of the MAG Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee. This meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment on items on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please complete the request to speak form located on the meeting room counter. MAG staff can assist you with any questions you may have. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the meeting room counter. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. Our next item is a call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, informational items, or items on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience unless the chair requests an exception to this limit. I have not received any requests to speak from call to the audience. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. Any comments received 2 hours prior to the meeting have been shared with committee members in advance of the meeting for consideration and will be included in the formal meeting minutes. MAG staff, have we received any online written comments for the call to the audience?
Madam Chair, no online written comments were received.
Thank you. And we will move to our next item, approval of the October 24th, 2024 meeting minutes. Does any member of the committee have questions? Hearing none, prior to the approval of the meeting minutes, there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment. I have not received any requests for this agenda item. MAG staff, have we received any online written comments for this item?
Madam Chair, no online written comments were received.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve agenda item number 3?
So moved, Tim Connor.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, Megan.
Thank you. We have a motion from Tim Connor and a second from Megan Sheldon. A roll call vote will be taken at this time by Lisa Yan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Walter Bouchard. Vince Wolpert.
Aye.
Thank you. Kelly McKenzie.
Aye.
Thank you. Beverly Chanowski.
Aye.
Thank you. Mike Denby. J.C. Porter. Kim Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Miguel Esquivel.
Abstain.
Thank you. Mark Ortiz. Ron Gritman. Hondo Judd. Megan Sheldon.
Aye.
Thank you. Monica Rab. Spencer Camps. Rick Williams. Kim Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Nicole Clements.
Aye.
Thank you. Jenna Brickner.
Aye.
Thank you. Jennifer Peterson. Katrina Gerster. Rupesh Patel.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Simpson.
Aye.
Thank you. Ben Davis.
Aye.
Thank you. Ryan Templeton.
Aye.
Thank you. Tim Connor.
Aye.
Thank you. Brody Lynn.
Aye.
Thank you. Jonathan Futch.
Aye.
Thank you. John Woods. Mike Chamberlain.
Aye. I'm sorry, mute.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Mike. Arden Holloway.
Yes.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone? Madam Chair, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Motion passes. We will now move to, I think we had one abstain, right? Okay, so motion still passes with one abstain. So item number 4 is the draft MAG conformity analysis for the draft FY 2025 to 2030 MAG Transportation Improvement Program and Momentum 2050 MAG Regional Transportation Plan. This is an action item. This item is on the agenda to recommend approval of the finding of conformity for the draft 2025 to 2030 MAG Transportation Improvement Program and Momentum 2050 MAG Regional Transportation Plan. Do we have any members of the public who wish to comment on the agenda item number 4? I have not received any request to speak cards for this agenda item. MAG staff, have you received any online written comments for this agenda item number 4?
Madam Chair, no online written comments were received.
Thank you. Dean Giles of Maricopa Association of Governments will provide the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee. MAG has conducted a conformity analysis on the draft fiscal year 2025 to 2030 MAG Transportation Improvement Program and Momentum 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. In this presentation, I'll first give some background on the transportation conformity requirements, then transition into the regional emissions analysis, and at the end, touch on the agency comments that we received at the end of the public agency comment period, which was December 13th, 2024. The Clean Air Act links transportation and air quality. and requires that transportation plans, programs, and projects conform to the purpose of air quality plans. This ensures that transportation activities do not cause violations of the federal air quality standards. The regional air quality plans set motor vehicle emissions budgets that are used in the conformity tests. And a finding of conformity is necessary for transportation projects in this draft tip to proceed. EPA conformity regulations require that all major transportation projects be included in the Transportation Improvement Program and Regional Transportation Plan. And the TIP and RTP must pass the conformity emissions tests using motor vehicle emissions budgets that have been approved or found by EPA to be adequate for transportation conformity purposes, or in areas without adequate or approved budgets, we use the interim emissions tests. Also, the latest planning assumptions and emissions models enforced at the time the conformity analysis begins must be used. And the TIP and Regional Transportation Plan must provide for the timely implementation of transportation control measures. And finally, consultation. MAG conducts interagency consultation at the beginning of the process on the proposed models, associated assumptions, and methods to be used in the conformity analysis, and at the end of the process on the draft conformity analysis report. The MAG planning area boundary and the Sun Corridor Metropolitan Planning Organization boundary include portions of the Pinal County PM10 and PM 2.5 non-attainment areas. Consequently, conformity is required to be demonstrated for both non-attainment areas by both MPOs. MAG and Sun Corridor MPO have coordinated on this conformity analysis, and MAG has prepared the conformity analysis for the Pinal County non-attainment areas to help the Sun Corridor MPO. In the next slide, you'll see the air quality areas in Maricopa and Pinal counties, with the Pinal County PM10 non-attainment area shown with the red boundary, and the Pinal County PM 2.5 non-attainment area shown in the crosshatch section. And you can see from the map that both non-attainment areas include a portion of the MAG Metropolitan Planning Area boundary shown in blue, and a portion of the Sun Corridor MPO Metropolitan Planning Area boundary shown in yellow. The next slides provide the regional emissions analysis results for carbon monoxide, 8-hour ozone, and PM10 for the Maricopa non-attainment and maintenance areas. In this slide for carbon monoxide, the required conformity test uses the EPA-approved motor vehicle emissions budget established in the MAG 2013 Carbon Monoxide Maintenance Plan. The projected CO emissions from implementation of the draft TIP and Regional Transportation Plan for each analysis year, shown here in the blue bars of 2025, 2030, 2040, and 2050, are all less than the motor vehicle emissions budget shown in the yellow bar, which is 559.4 metric tons per day. Moving on to 8-hour ozone, the required conformity test uses the EPA-approved motor vehicle emissions budgets for volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, and nitrogen oxides, or NOx, established in the MAG 2017 8-hour ozone moderate area plan. In this slide, the projected VOC emissions from implementation of the draft TIP and regional transportation plan for each analysis year of 2026, 2030, 2040, and 2050 are less than the 2017 VOC budget of 45.7 metric tons per day. Moving on to nitrogen oxides. The projected emissions from implementation of the draft TIP and RTP for each analysis year. Again, we use 2026, 2030, 2040, and 2050 are all less than the NOx, the 2017 NOx budget of 62.7 metric tons per day. And for PM10, the required test uses two motor vehicle emissions budgets. The first established in the MAG 2012 5% plan for PM10, and in the revised MAG 1999 serious area particulate plan for PM10. The projected PM10 emissions from implementation of the draft TIP and RTP for analysis years 2025, 2030, 2040, and 2050 are all less than the motor vehicle emissions budgets for 2006 and 2012. This slide shows the TIP and RTP transportation control measure funding. The TIP and RTP must provide for the timely implementation of transportation control measures and approved air quality plans. This chart presents the total funding that's programmed in the draft TIP for TCMs. The largest share of funding is for public transit, and the total transportation control measure funding in the TIP is $3.2 billion in funding. Moving on to the next slides, which show the regional emissions analysis results for Pinal County, both the PM10 and PM 2.5 non-attainment areas. Since there are no adequate or approved motor vehicle emissions budgets, the interim emissions tests were conducted. And this slide for PM10 shows for each of the analysis years, 2025, 2030, 2040, and 2050, that the projected emissions for the action scenario are not greater than the projected emissions for the baseline scenario. Moving on to PM 2.5 non-attainment area. The interim emissions test includes a test for PM 2.5 and nitrogen oxides. For PM 2.5, for each of the analysis years, 2025, 2030, 2040, and 2050, the projected emissions for the action scenario are not greater than the projected emissions for the baseline scenario. And for NOx, for each of the analysis years, the projected emissions for the action scenario are not greater than the projected baseline scenario emissions. The results of the regional emissions analysis indicate that the draft TIP and regional transportation plan satisfy the conformity tests conducted for the Maricopa non-attainment and maintenance areas and the Pinal PM10 and PM 2.5 non-attainment areas and a finding of conformity is supported. Before I move on to the transportation conformity schedule, I'm now going to turn to the agency comments that were received by the end of the comment period, which was last Friday, December 13th. We just finished responding to the comments yesterday. And so we have the comments and responses to share with the committee. The comments received from the Federal Highway Administration, Arizona Division Office. The first comment reads as, on page 33, table 6, footnote B describes how the VMT for the action scenario was calculated, but it does not mention application of the HPMS reconciliation factor from pages 24 through 25, which is 1.75%. In our response, the HPMS reconciliation factor was applied to the 8-hour ozone non-attainment area that covers portions of Pinal, Maricopa and Pinal counties, and the VMT is provided on page 60, table 16 of the MAG conformity analysis report. Table 6 describes the VMT for the entire transportation modeling domain, covering all of Maricopa and Pinal counties. The second comment, the report shows that emissions for all pollutants and calendar years are lower in the action versus baseline. However, it appears that on page 45, VMT is higher in the action scenario versus the baseline for most years in both the PM 2.5 and PM 10 non-attainment areas. Generally, emissions tend to be linearly related to VMT, meaning that an increase in VMT would be expected to show a similar increase in emissions. Are there other moves, inputs changing between the baseline and action scenario that are driving the emissions decrease? If so, the report should include a discussion addressing this counterintuitive result. In our response, despite higher total VMT, the change in fleet composition and enhanced dust control measures result in lower action scenario emissions compared to baseline scenario emissions. The changes in fleet composition, especially heavy-duty trucks versus light-duty vehicles, results in lower PM 2.5 and NOx emissions. The implementation of best available control measures for public unpaved roads results in lower PM 10 emissions. Factors beyond total VMT, such as emission rates by vehicle class and back and paving activities, can yield counterintuitive yet explainable outcomes. So that concludes the comments received from FHWA, Arizona Division Office. The next set of comments are from EPA Region 9. The first comment is on page 58 under speeds, there is no hyperlink included for here. In our response, on December 16th, 2024, EPA clarified that the comment is on page 30, table 2. The highway models were validated using peak season average speed based on 50 million traffic speed records purchased from here for calendar year 2018 and also compared to a similar data set purchased in the same year. In this sentence, here refers to a technology company. For comment 2, on page 80 of this document, it discusses the different assumptions used for control of unpaved roads between the action and baseline scenario. For the baseline scenario, the control assumptions are reduced in the future, as under a baseline scenario, less funds are allocated for paving and stabilizing of unpaved roads, and less new paved roads are being built, which increases and forces increased traffic onto existing unpaved roads. To account for this, under a baseline scenario, it is assumed that emissions reductions equivalent to the paving and stabilizing of 10 miles per year are occurring, instead of the 15 miles per year assumed in the 2023 5% particulate plan for PM10. Is there historical data or trends that support the use of 10 miles per year? How was it determined to reduce the 15 miles by 5 for this metric? The 15 miles per year of paving are committed controls in the 2023 5% particulate plan for PM10. Therefore, it should apply to both the baseline and action scenario. Please provide more context to support use of 10 miles per year of paving in the baseline scenario. And MAG's response, in response to question 2A and 2B above, conservative estimates of the impact of a baseline scenario on paving projects in the West Pinal County PM10 non-attainment area were used to develop the reduction in the miles of roads paved per year from 15 to 10 miles. New road paving projects that would normally be included and identified for funding in the TIP under an action scenario, for example, paving projects funded with CMAQ funds, are not to be included in the status quo baseline scenario. As such, it is very reasonable to assume that without the identification and funding for paving projects that exists in the action scenario, the baseline scenario will not be able to fund the paving of public unpaved roads beyond present activities, or at a rate that would be equal to the action scenario. In fact, it would not be unreasonable to assume that no new paving projects would continue under the baseline scenario, as there would be no funding identified for these paving projects. However, to keep assumptions conservative in estimating emissions for a baseline scenario, road paving projects were only reduced by 33% from the 15 miles per year expected in the action scenario, resulting in the 10 miles per year currently assumed in the baseline scenario. While the requirement to control PM10 emissions from public unpaved roads with ADT above 26 exists under both an action and baseline scenario, the rate at which public unpaved roads are either paved or stabilized will be different under each scenario given the project identification and funding limitations of a baseline scenario. For example, an unpaved road that is scheduled to be paved with CMAQ funding under the action scenario may only be able to be stabilized under a baseline scenario if funding for paving has not been identified. In general, stabilization only provides 50% of the emission reduction benefits that paving provides, thus resulting in different emissions under the baseline or action scenario. For EPA question number 3, on page 84, it is stated that PM10 emissions from road construction were extracted from the Maricopa County 2023 periodic emissions inventory for PM10 and are held constant for all analysis years. Please confirm that 2023 is a representative year for construction emissions and that future years have less than or equal to the amount of construction emissions and/or projects to ensure this metric is conservative. And in MAG's response, as required under 40 CFR 93.122 paragraph E of the Transportation Conformity Rule, PM10 emission estimates from road construction in the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area are included in the MAG conformity analysis. For each of the analysis years, MAG has applied the 4.54 metric tons per day of PM10 emissions from road construction from the Maricopa County 2023 periodic emissions inventory for PM10. PM10 emissions from road construction are based on road control permit applications received by Maricopa County. Road construction activity typically changes from one year to the next based on available funding. The 4.54 metric tons per day that was applied in this conformity analysis appears to be reasonable based on periodic emissions inventories completed in 2011, 2014, 2017, and 2020, with road construction emissions of 4.71, 2.30, 4.95, and 3.20 metric tons per day of PM10 emissions, respectively. And then the last EPA comment. Please confirm the number of PM10 street sweepers that are currently being used in Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. Is this number still 100 as implied by the text? And in MAG's response, the latest PM10 street sweeper inventory completed in October 2024 indicates that 133 street sweepers are in operation in the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area. An additional 14 street sweepers are in operation in the West Pinal PM10 non-attainment area. In the draft fiscal year 2025 to 2030 MAG Transportation Improvement Program, approximately $8.8 million in CMAQ funding is set aside to continue the purchase of street sweepers to replace older PM10 certified street sweepers, expand the area swept, and to increase the frequency of sweeping. And that concludes the agency comments received and our responses. And then moving on now to the conformity schedule. Today, with the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee recommendation of approval of the draft MAG conformity analysis, it's expected that the MAG Management Committee may recommend at their meeting on January 8th approval of the finding of conformity. And then finally, the MAG Regional Council may take approval action at their meeting on January 22nd, 2025, on the finding of conformity for the draft fiscal year 2025 to 2030 MAG TIP and Momentum 2050 RTP. Madam Chair, that completes my presentation.
Thank you, Dean. That was a lot. We appreciate all of that reading and response. And I just wanted to comment that it looks like we're really going in a good direction on all of those areas, even in Pinal, which is exciting because they're kind of more on the brand new side. So do any other members have any questions or comments? Thank you. Is there a motion to recommend approval of the finding of conformity for the draft FY 2025-2030 MAG Transportation Improvement Program and Momentum 2050 MAG Regional Transportation Plan?
Tim
This is
Connor,
Ryan.
so moved.
Oh, we got one of you.
Yeah, take the other person.
Ryan Templeton, I move to approve.
Ryan Templeton, thank you. And do we have a second?
Yeah, second by Tim Connor.
Thank you, Tim. We have a motion by Ryan Templeton and a second by Tim Connor. A roll call vote will be taken at this time by Lisa Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Vince Wolpert, Aye. Thank you.
Maybe.
Kelly McKenzie,
Abstain.
thank you. Beverly Chanowski,
Aye.
thank you. Jesse Porter,
Aye.
thank you. Kim Anderson,
Aye.
thank you. Miguel Esquivel,
Abstain.
thank you. Hondo Judd,
Aye.
thank you. Megan Sheldon, Megan Sheldon,
Aye.
thank you. Monica Rab, Kim Butler,
Aye.
thank you. Nicole Clements.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Nicole, we didn't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. Jenna Brickner,
Aye.
thank you. Katrina Gerster,
Aye.
thank you. Rupesh Patel,
Aye.
thank you. Chair Simpson,
Aye.
thank you. Ben Davis. Ben Davis. Ryan Templeton,
Aye.
thank you. Tim Connor,
Aye.
thank you. Brody Lynn,
Aye.
thank you. Jonathan Fudge,
Abstain.
thank you. John Woods,
Aye.
thank you. Mike Chamberlain,
Aye.
thank you. Arden Holloway,
Yes.
thank you. One moment, please.
This is from Ben Davis, is aye.
Thank you, Ben. Madam Chair, we have 19 yeses and 3 abstentions.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now we'll move on to item number 5, which is evaluation of the proposed PM10 paving unpaved road projects for FY 2026, 27, 28 CMAQ funding. This item is on the agenda for the recommendation to rank the proposed PM10 paving unpaved road projects for FY 26, 27, 28 CMAQ funding and forward to the MAG Transportation Review Committee. Do we have any members of the public who wish to comment on agenda item number 5? I haven't received any requests to speak cards for this agenda. Staff, have you received any online written comments for agenda item number 5?
Madam Chair, no online written comments were received.
Thank you. Dean Giles will now provide the presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. On September 16th, 2024, MAG issued a call for PM10 paving unpaved road project applications from MAG member agencies. The funding for PM10 paving unpaved road projects is one of the regional competitive programs identified in the Regional Transportation Plan. Applications were due by October 17th, 2024, and MAG received 12 applications in the Maricopa County PM10 non-attainment area, requesting $32.31 million in CMAQ funding. There were no applications received from the Pinal County non-attainment areas. For the PM10 paving unpaved road projects, there was $12.84 million in CMAQ funding available, and an additional $2.11 million in CMAQ PM 2.5 funding available in the Transportation Improvement Program for projects in the Pinal County PM 2.5 non-attainment area. MAG staff has conducted an evaluation of the proposed projects. For the evaluation, MAG staff used the data provided in the project applications and applied the MAG CMAQ methodologies for calculating the estimated PM10 project emission reductions in kilograms per day, and to calculate the cost effectiveness. The cost effectiveness is calculated by dividing the CMAQ cost by the annual emission reductions. In your agenda materials, the results are provided in order of cost effectiveness in attachment A and in order of PM10 reductions in attachment B. On November 12th, 2024, the MAG Street Committee convened to review the applications, and no comments were received from members of the MAG Street Committee. Today, the MAG Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee may make a recommendation to rank the proposed PM10 paving unpaved road projects for fiscal years 2026, 2027, and 2028 to forward to the MAG Transportation Review Committee. Then in January, the TRC may make a recommendation to the MAG Management Committee for their meeting on February 12th, 2025. That will also go to the Transportation Policy Committee and then on to the MAG Regional Council for their meeting on September 26, 2025. That completes my presentation. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dean. Do any members have questions or comments on the ranking? Is there a motion for the recommendation to rank the proposed PM10 paving unpaved road projects for FY 26, 27, and 28 CMAQ funding and forward to the MAG Transportation Review Committee?
Tim Connor, so moved.
Thank you, Tim. And I need a second.
J.C. Porter, I'll second it.
We'll get J.C. Porter in there. Thank you. We have a motion from Tim Connor and a second from J.C. Porter. A roll call vote will now be taken at this time by Lisa Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, when I call your name, please state your vote. Vince Wilpert.
Aye.
Thank you. Kelly McKenzie.
Aye.
Thank you. Beverly Chanowski.
Aye.
Thank you. J.C. Porter.
Aye.
Thank you. Kim Anderson.
Abstain.
Thank you. Miguel Esquivel.
Aye.
Thank you. Honda Judd.
Aye.
Thank you. Megan Sheldon.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Megan, we didn't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. Monica Rab.
Yes.
Thank you. Kim Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Nicole Clements.
Abstain.
Thank you. Jenna Brickner.
Aye.
Thank you. Katrina Gerster.
Aye.
Thank you. Rupesh Patel.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Simpson.
Aye.
Thank you. Ben Davis.
Aye.
Thank you. Ryan Templeton.
Aye.
Thank you. Tim Connor.
Aye.
Thank you. Brody Lynn.
Aye.
Thank you. Jonathan Fudge.
Abstain.
Thank you. John Woods.
Aye.
Thank you. Mike Chamberlain,
Aye.
thank you. Arden Holloway,
Yes.
thank you. Madam Chair, we have 19 yeses and 3 abstentions.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Madam Chair.
Dean, do you have some comment?
Yes, if we could just get clarification if the motion was to use the ranking in attachment A.
Okay, Tim and JC,
Yes, this is Tim Cotter. I will amend my motion to include that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll second it. Good catch.
thank you. Attachment A,
Attachment A. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to item number 6, EPA final guidance on the preparation of state implementation plan provisions that address the non-attainment area contingency measure requirements for ozone and particulate matter. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Laura Ballard from Maricopa Association of Governments.
Hello, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Laura Ballard, and I'm part of MAG's Environmental Division. I will be presenting to you an update and general overview of EPA's recently finalized contingency measure guidance for non-attainment areas for ozone and particulate matter. Clean Air Act Section 172C9 describes contingency measures required for non-attainment area plans. As summarized here, these measures shall take effect when triggered without further action by the state or the administrator. Contingency measures are specific measures to be undertaken if the area fails to make reasonable further progress or attain the national primary ambient air quality standards by the applicable date. The term triggered for contingency measures refers to the EPA having made a final determination that requires implementation of the contingency measures, such as a final determination that a non-attainment area has failed to meet RFP or has failed to attain air quality standard by the applicable attainment date. The Clean Air Act also establishes timeframes for the EPA to make such determinations. The purpose of the guidance is to provide nationally aligned guidance to air agencies in meeting contingency measure requirements as part of ozone and particulate matter non-attainment area plan submissions. The guidance does not address contingency measure requirements for maintenance plans, extreme ozone non-attainment areas, or contingency measure requirements for air quality standards beyond that of ozone and particulate matter. While the guidance itself is non-binding, the implementation of the recommendations are. A brief history is outlined here. The 30-year-old guidance has been through the courts on several occasions, each with differing court decisions and interpretations. Essentially, this has led to various inconsistencies with what has been historically acceptable for calculating contingency measures and their effectiveness. Additionally, the scarcity of remaining unimplemented control measures in long-standing non-attainment areas pose a significant challenge in meeting contingency measure requirements. EPA also promulgated a more protective health standard regarding particulate matter earlier this year, which this guidance lends to. So in March of 2023, EPA provided notice on their draft revisions to the longstanding guidance and recommended approaches therein and offered a 30-day comment period on the document. MAG reviewed the draft guidance during the comment period, but not provide comment. The finalized guidance was completed in early 2024. The EPA released a Federal Register notice on this guidance and its availability just yesterday. There are 3 key aspects of the final guidance. The EPA is leaving the contingency measure guidance largely unchanged, however, has revised its recommendations concerning the following. First, emissions reductions method, which provides the method to calculate the EPA recommended amount of emissions reductions from contingency measures. The longstanding EPA guidance has recommended that contingency measures provide emissions reductions approximately equal to or greater than the amount needed to meet the requirement for reasonable further progress in the relevant area for 1 year. I'll cover more on this update on a later slide. Secondly, infeasibility justification. This addresses the situation where feasible contingency measures in sufficient quantity to produce the EPA recommended amount of reductions is not there. This guidance provides recommendations for how air agencies can identify and assess potential contingency measures and address the situation where an air agency cannot identify feasible contingency measures in sufficient quantity to produce the recommended amount of reductions using an updated metric. Previous EPA policy has allowed mechanisms for states that could provide reasoned justification to have contingency measures that result in less than one recommended 1 year's worth of RFP. Finally, the new guidance addresses the time within which emissions reductions from contingency measures should occur. The EPA previously recommended that contingency measures take effect within 60 days of being triggered, and that has the resulting reductions generally should occur within 1 year of the triggering event. In instances where there are insufficient contingency measures available to achieve the recommended amount of emissions reductions within 1 year, the EPA provides recommendations on how air agencies could include contingency measures that provide reductions within 2 years of the triggering event. The revised guidance does not alter the 60-day requirement for the measures to take effect. Emissions reductions method. In the revised guidance, the EPA continues to recommend an annual progress-based approach for calculating the recommended amount of reductions for contingency measures, but is revising the metric to be more closely tied to the air quality improvement needs of the area and when the contingency measures may be triggered in the future. At the bottom here is the definition from the guidance when applied to either ozone or particulate matter. It states 1 year's worth of progress means an amount equal or greater than the annual emission reductions between the base year and the attainment year as applied to the attainment projected inventory rather than to a set percentage of the base year emissions inventory for ozone or to the annual average reductions between base year emissions inventory and the attainment projected emissions inventory for particulate matter. Continuing on the same topic of calculating emissions reductions, EPA's updated guidance leans on the progress in achieving attainment instead of a set percentage. EPA recognizes in some non-attainment situations, the 3% is not enough to meet reasonable further progress. The guidance update provides a method for calculating 1 year's worth for all precursor pollutants individually. For ozone, this is volatile organic compounds or VOCs, and nitrogen oxides referred to as NOx. Under this new method, there will be situations where a non-attainment area would need more than 3% of VOC and NOx combined to attain for ozone. Again, this revised guidance focus is on progress rather than a set percentage. This method has the potential to result in more contingency measure emissions reductions needed for one or more precursors than would have been needed under the prior approach. If 1 year's worth of progress cannot be met, the guidance recommends thorough examination of relevant emission sources and the range of existing and potential control measures, essentially a BACT analysis. Potential contingency measures will need to be identified as infeasible based on technological or economic infeasibility. EPA anticipates that an air agency should be able to identify at least some feasible measures to serve as contingency measures, even if they achieve less than 1 year's worth of progress, which leads to the final change to the guidance regarding timelines. EPA is still requiring that administrative actions needed to implement contingency measures occur within a 60-day period after a triggering event. Generally, the guidance requires emissions reductions from contingency measures to occur within 1 year. However, in situations when 1 year's worth of progress can't be met, the new guidance is allowing for emission reductions from contingency measures to occur up to a 2-year period from a triggering event without ample justification. In summary, these updated aspects will allow a larger universe of measures to be considered as possible contingency measures and provide pathways forward in regard to options in calculating contingency measure reductions to better reflect the non-attainment area's anticipated needs for additional emissions reductions to attain air quality standards. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. Matt and I are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Laura. That's a lot too, right? Hopefully it seems like there's some more flexibility that's occurring, although some additional contingency might need to be addressed as well, but 2 years to address. I think they're on the right trajectory. Do any members have questions or comments? Great. Thank you very much, Laura, and welcome to the group. We appreciate you. Item number 7 is an update on planning efforts to address the 2015 ozone standard in the Maricopa non-attainment area. This item is on the agenda for information and discussion and will be presented by Matt Poppin from MEC.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Yeah, I just want to give you an update. This is last update, I think, was in September. So we wanted to get you up to where we are with our issues, our perennial issues with ozone. So it's important, again, to go over the timeline because we are working on 2 different plans at the same time. We're working on a plan to address moderate area requirements and a serious area plan. The reason why we're doing a moderate area plan requirements is because we're under sanctions, and those were triggered by EPA back in November 17th, 2023. The next important date to remember is our attainment date. We were supposed to attain the standard on August 3rd, 2024, but we have missed that. That means at some point EPA will be reclassifying this region to serious. And the reason why we didn't meet that date, if you remember, the standard for ozone is 70 parts per billion. Our current air quality data is 80 parts per billion, which is 10 parts over the standard. Reclassification to serious under the Clean Air Act should occur as late as February 3rd, 2025. But EPA can act earlier than that if they choose. So we're just waiting for EPA action. We have seen EPA action in other areas. EPA has reclassified areas in Utah. They've reclassified and several areas in the Midwest, what they just published today, Cleveland, Chicago, areas of Michigan and Wisconsin. So these are starting to happen across the nation. What are those sanctions that we're currently under? The first sanctions would take place on May 17th, 2025. That's a 2-to-1 offset sanction on major industries if a plan is not submitted. The second sanction is the withholding of federal highway funds 2 years from that date, November 17th, 2025. Good news is submission of a moderate area requirements plan will turn off those sanctions clocks. While we're working on that plan, we also have to develop a serious area plan, which is due to EPA January 1st, 2026. And then lastly, our new attainment date is August 3rd, 2027. That's when the area is supposed to again reach that 70 parts per billion threshold in order to be in attainment with the standard. So what's MAG doing to address these issues? We've got 3 main efforts underway to address these requirements. Our first is putting together a plan, a moderate area plan that will turn off those sanctions clock. That will be the bulk of my presentation today. Secondly, I'll give you a brief update on our development of an approvable serious area plan. Much of the work on the serious area plan will be coming before this committee next year. We'll have lots of updates on that. Currently, we're in the process of refining our emissions inventory and doing modeling to determine how much emission reductions are needed to attain by the new attainment date of August 3rd, 2027. And then lastly, it's important to note that while we're doing the technical work in strategies number 1 and 2, our third strategy is continued engagement with EPA to address the real challenges that we had. We just had a presentation this morning from EPA headquarters staff where they went over some of their modeling efforts and some of their analysis of emissions data and air concentrations data. So hopefully we can provide an update to the committee on that, on what we learned from them. But there'll be opportunities to reflect on that moving forward. But we will need regulatory relief on 2 important items, wildfires and international transport, really to put together an approvable serious area plan. Okay, so the next part of this presentation is focused on what's required for moderate, because will be coming before this committee for recommendation early next year. Reasonably available control technology. These are technologies that must be adopted by the implementing entities, in this case, the counties and the state. And I'll talk about where we are in that effort. We have to have a basic vehicle inspection and maintenance program in place for your car emissions testing. Non-attainment new source review, that's a permitting program for significant sources in the stationary sources in the non-attainment area. Reasonable further progress. I've got a lot of information on this one, so I'll dive into that further later. Contingency measures, as we heard in the prior agenda item, this plan has to have contingency measures that will be triggered for failing to attain by August 3rd, 2024. And then lastly, again, this plan has to be submitted to EPA before May 2025 in order to turn off those sanctions clocks. So let me go into a little bit of detail on these requirements. RACT. So ADEQ, Maricopa County, and Pinal County are submitting separate, what we call RACT SIPs. So they don't have to be part of our plan. They can submit these directly to EPA. And they have largely done that. Maricopa County is largely done with that. ADEQ will be submitting something just for the Gila County portion of the non-attainment area. And then Pinal County is working on a submittal for the Pinal County portion of the non-attainment area. So what our plan will do is just simply summarize the actions that those agencies are taking. Basic vehicle inspection maintenance program. This committee and everybody is aware that we have a pretty robust inspection program in place. And in fact, we have what's known as an enhanced vehicle inspection program. That's required of serious area. So the good news is we don't have to strengthen our vehicle and inspection program once we get reclassified to serious, because our area already meets those guidelines. What the plan has to have into it is a performance modeling demonstration that we meet EPA performance standards. And the good news is we've done that modeling and we do meet EPA performance standards. So our plan will reflect that our program meets all EPA requirements. Non-attainment new source review. We have a robust permitting program in place, and the plan will summarize the existing regulations that currently exist both in Maricopa County and Pinal County and the sources that the state has authority over. This one I'll take a little bit further to explain. So what is reasonable further progress? Specifically with ozone, the Clean Air Act requires a 15% reduction in non-attainment area anthropogenic, so man-made emissions of VOCs over a 6-year period. So for our plan, the base year is 2017, and the milestone year is 2023. So we should show a 15% reduction in VOC across the non-attainment area. The ozone implementation rule for the 2015 standard allows a non-attainment area to use VOC and NOx instead of just VOC only if the non-attainment area has previously demonstrated this 15% reduction in VOC under a prior standard. So either under the 2008 ozone standard or the 1997 ozone standard or even the 1-hour standard. The good news is we have done that under the 2008 ozone standard. EPA has approved that. I think I have it here. They approved that back on June 2nd, 2022. So for that portion of the non-attainment area, we could use VOC and or NOx to demonstrate a 15% reduction. However, since the non-attainment area has been expanded when the 2015 ozone standard was created, the ability to substitute NOx for VOC only applies to that old boundary, so the 2008 boundary. So here's a map showing the two boundaries. So the 2008, the boundary for the 2008 standard is the crosshatch. And then you can see the area, the non-attainment area that was expanded with the 2015 standard in that light pink. So for about 95% of the non-attainment area, we can show 15% rate of progress using both VOC and NOx. However, for that pink area, the expanded portion, we're still stuck with VOC only, which is proving to be a challenge for us. So we have put together some draft emissions for the non-attainment area, and they're pretty much done, but we could have some changes on the margin. So here are the totals between 2017 and 2023. So man-made NOx, you see a dramatic reduction, almost a 40% reduction from 2017 to 2023. This is largely due to improvements in vehicle tailpipe emissions and also vehicle fleet turnover. As older cars come off the road, newer cars take their place. And even though we have increased vehicle miles of travel in the region, the change out of those older, dirtier vehicles results in dramatic reductions in NOx emissions. However, the reductions in VOC emissions are much slower. This is because with vehicles, most of the emissions in terms of VOC are from refueling, putting gas in your gas tank. It's not out of your tailpipe. So this, we're pretty much still putting about the same amount of gas in our gas tanks. So we don't have that dramatic reduction in VOC that we have in NOx. So again, for the 2008 portion of the non-attainment area, we meet the RFP requirements, the reasonable further progress requirements, because we can use both VOC or NOx. However, for the expanded portion, we don't currently meet that. In order to do that, in order to meet it, additional reductions in VOC emissions only are going to be needed to demonstrate it. We can demonstrate it in two ways. We can just focus on the expanded portion, or we can do the whole demonstration for the entire non-attainment area again. But additional reductions will be needed to ultimately meet that 15% requirement. Good news is additional reductions are achieved through contingency measures that are being adopted by Maricopa County, which I'll cover a little bit here briefly. And it's also expected that as we go through the serious area planning process, there could be additional measures that might be identified that can help meet that 15% reduction. But because we don't know what those measures are or what they might be, we don't have a firm date yet as to when we can achieve that 15% VOC only reduction. So for this moderate area plan, we'll be describing the current situation we're in, the commitments that are in place, and hopefully we can come up with a year that we think the 15% reduction will happen. So here's the schedule for the outstanding moderate area requirements. Our draft plan will be available for public comment on February 2025. So that's when it's going to go out for public comment. So that's pretty soon next year. This will bring the plan through the committee in March to make a recommendation like you're doing today on several other items. That will be a recommendation to the management committee. Management committee would act in April, and then regional council would adopt the plan in April as well. And then ADUQ will ultimately submit the plan to EPA in May before the first sanctions clocks hit. Those sanctions clocks are officially terminated when EPA finds the plan complete. So they don't have to approve the plan to turn off the sanctions clocks. They just have to find it complete. Just really briefly, I wanted to give you one slide on where we are with serious area plan developments. So we continue to do photochemical modeling to estimate the ozone concentrations in 2026, which is our new attainment year, both with existing and possible new controls. Right now, it's anticipated that with the existing and possible new controls, we'll be predicting ozone concentrations of 72 or 73 parts per billion, which is 2 to 3 parts per billion over the standard. So it's still not getting us there by the attainment date. Because of that, it's highly likely we have to include what's known as a Clean Air Act 179B prospective demonstration of the impact of international emissions. So if we can put together a demonstration that shows that at least 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 parts per billion of our ozone problem are related to international emissions, that can help us demonstrate attainment and get an approvable plan up to EPA. Currently, MAG has a request for proposal out on our website for consultant help in preparing a 179B demonstration for inclusion in the Serious Area Plan submittal. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you, Matt. Do any members have any questions or comments? Thank you very much. You guys are working hard, and that's a really tight timeline and trying to meet all those deadlines. For sure, we really appreciate MAG's efforts and the counties and the state. The next item is our tentative meeting schedule for the MAG Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee. This item is on agenda for information, and Matt Poppin will discuss this topic.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just really briefly, you should see the schedule for the dates that are included for our meetings coming up. And I did want to just mention, as part of these meetings, it's one thing for all the committee members to be aware of is when we have these meetings online and you join via Zoom, only the person who is either acting as a proxy or the committee actual member can attend via Zoom. You cannot both, if you're not acting as a proxy or if you're not the actual member, you cannot attend through the Zoom link. So we have had situations where both the current member and the proxy is attending through Zoom, and that provides issues when Lisa is trying to take roll call. So just make sure that if only one representative from each member agency or industry representative attends via Zoom. If you'd like to, you can watch our meetings online through the YouTube link as well, so you can still watch it. But use of that Zoom link that Lisa sends out is just for either the committee member itself, or if the committee member is going to be absent, then the proxy can use it. But a committee member and a proxy cannot use it at the same time. So just wanted to let the committee know that as well.
Thank you. That's very, very good to know. Sometimes we want members of our team to watch it, but as you said, maybe they just watch it afterwards when it's
And they can
presented.
watch it live too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not on the Zoom link.
Exactly.
Great. Is there any questions about the schedule? I don't think that we had any. Great. Item number 9 is a request for future agenda items. An opportunity will be provided for the committee members to request topics or issues of interest they would like to have considered for discussion at a future meeting. Are there any requests from the membership for an item on a future agenda? I know we'll be having a lot of these things that you just all discussed. An item that I would request, and it doesn't have to be right in January, it could be when they have something ready. We usually like to hear from Maricopa County Air Quality on some of their programs that they have for outreach and education to reduce fireworks and ground level fireworks and wood burning. And I just wondered if at some time at the beginning of the year, they might come back in and give us an analysis on any of that participation. I know that it's a small portion, but it could show that we're trying to reach the public on what we're wood burning in combination with international transport and wildfires. Anything we can do to reduce that would be beneficial. So that would just be a request that I'd have whenever they're ready. Okay, I think we're ready to adjourn. The next meeting of the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee will be on Thursday, January 23rd, 2025 at 1:30. Business is now concluded. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Madam Chair, this is Megan. So moved.
Thank you, Megan. Do we have a second?
I second Kimberly Anderson.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you very much. We don't have to vote on that one. So the meeting is now adjourned and everyone have a very happy holiday.